All right, so welcome to Wendy Sloter, who is very active at our synagogue and has been on every committee, I think, that's ever existed and probably that ever will exist. So, Wendy, as you know, this is our new kind of program that says, let's get to know people and learn their Jewish stories. And as you've said, we've already done a good many Jewish stories, and I'm interested in hearing yours. So tell me your Jewish story.
Okay, well, first of all, I joined Temple Beth Miriam 27 years ago. After I was there 2 weeks, somebody came up to me and said, Sisterhood is dissolving. Why don't you be president? And I
Hmm.
said, Are you sure nobody else wants to do it? And she said, No. So that's how I became active. I was president after being a member for 2 weeks. Um, I joined Temple Beth Miriam when Rabbi Joseph Goldman was the rabbi of blessed memory, of course,
Hmm.
and I was getting married, and Rabbi Goldman married us. And I'm no longer married, but I'm still there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, where to start? I was raised in Bradley Beach. Um,
Which is
there were,
just down the shore.
yes,
Hmm.
New Jersey, right on the beach. We knew, my parents and I and my sisters and I knew everybody in Bradley Beach because that's the way it was back then.
I'm sure.
The school you walked to, it was kindergarten through eighth grade. You went home for lunch. There was one synagogue in town at the time. Now I think there's two, and one of them is a summer synagogue. But my father and mother were extremely active there. My father was president, he was chairman of the board, he was on the Cheva Kadisha. His name is all over the synagogue. His name is all over our cemetery. And he also did everything you could think of to do there. He was also president of a men's club. They ran a bingo hall, which paid off the mortgage. So I guess that's where I got my excitement about doing things at Temple. The synagogue was Orthodox. And like I said, it was the only game in town. We went to synagogue for everything. Um, I went to Hebrew school 4 days a week and was Bas mitzvahed when I was 12 years old with three other girls. It was on a Sunday. I think that was the first and only time I ever stood on the bima.
Mm.
Of course, we weren't allowed to touch the Torah. Um, we spoke in, we gave prayers and so forth in English and Hebrew. At the synagogue, women sat on two ends and the men were in the middle
Mm.
because we were all separated. And one of the things I remember the most about it is that the women, for the most part, were not paying attention to the services because they didn't know what was going on.
Mm.
I did, but it just never felt right to me
Mm.
because I couldn't sit with my family.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we moved from Bradley Beach to Oakhurst when I was a teenager. And the funny thing about that was that most of the other Jewish families in Ocean Township and Deal and Asbury and Belmar all moved to Ocean Township. The new high school had just opened. So the men used to still drive to synagogue. They used to drive to synagogue on Saturdays, which they never did. And they would park around the corner so that nobody should know they drove there, like they were going to walk from Ocean Township, which was really funny. Um, I also taught at a conservative Hebrew school in Rumson for a long time, and then Temple Beth Torah when it was there. And when I was at B'nai Israel, hearing a female cantor sing for the first time and being able to sit with people, the men, women, whoever, I started crying.
Now, B'nai Israel's in Rumson?
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
okay.
So it was just so emotional to me.
I imagine.
And as I said, I wound up at Temple Beth Miriam. One thing I wanted to mention, let me know if I'm going on about things I shouldn't. um, After my mom died when she was 66 of cancer, we were very, very close. And I thought I had stopped believing in God. And I guess I had stopped believing in the God I was taught to believe in, who was this man up in the sky with a long white beard wearing a shroud.
Mm,
And that would say to me at the high holidays, why aren't you here other times? And the whole thing. Well,
sure.
walking on the boardwalk one day that summer, and I looked out to the ocean, and there was a sailboat, and these rays of the sun were surrounding it, coming down on it. And that was the first time I realized that. I said, that's God. God's in us.
Mm,
So it was a natural transition, I think, for me to wind up at Beth Miriam,
mm,
where I, as a woman, could be so active,
mm-hmm.
where I would meet wonderful, wonderful people who have become lifelong friends.
Sure.
And that's where I am today.
That is really cool. So, what did you teach in these religious schools?
I did not teach Hebrew. My Hebrew wasn't great. I never learned to read from the Torah. I cannot read without vowels. But while I was teaching at B'nai Israel, I thought it was very important for me to take a refresher course in Hebrew,
How'd you
even though I was
do?
teaching Hebrew. So I went to Temple Bethel because I thought nobody knew me there, which I was wrong.
I'm sure you were wrong.
And I was in the rabbi's classes there getting refreshed on how to speak Hebrew. So what I taught at B'nai Israel was comparative religions.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I found it extremely interesting. I had to learn it as I was going along. Some of my family is not Jewish. And it was interesting sort of learning the perspective there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I taught boys and girls, which I was in
Sure.
girls,
Sure.
and they were pre-teenagers. So it was very interesting. I also taught Pirkei Avot, but back then that was still about men only, and women didn't play a part in it so. And I know that you teach it or taught it, and it's different now.
So, what do you mean, men? It only includes men. I'm not sure I understand. What in Pirkei Avot? I mean, all the language is masculine, obviously, but
Right.
is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
That it uses the word man and so forth? Oh, I see. Okay, and of course, Hebrew is a language that does not have a gender neutral. Um, uh,
You make it that way at our temple, and the
well,
new books
that,
are that way, and that's
yeah,
very
yeah.
nice.
Well, thank you, but that's because I know the Hebrew very well, and if we're trying to make a congregation, if we're trying to even make a class um, something relatable, you want to include people because I think your experience of feeling, for lack of a better word, not included. Uh, that's something that I've heard many times.
And not
Uh,
saying that that's bad, and I know there are, religious people who really believe that way and they're comfortable with that.
sure,
Uh,
sure. Um, yeah, but a lot of people that I've spoken with over the past 35 years of being a rabbi, uh, have said, you know, I loved the congregational family that I grew up with. And yes, the men and the women were separated by a mechitza, and all that, but they have an experience that is either positive or negative, which is kind of interesting. So they have a positive experience because they go to see, their whatever's bat mitzvah, and the young woman is up on the bima, and she's doing everything like we do at Beth Miriam. There's no differentiation between any of the genders, and then there are some people who have negative experiences, where they weren't able to follow the service, or they didn't feel they got the education, and the thing, the hierarchy, or for lack of a better word, the patriarchy, would give them, would pay them lip service, and so that could be interpreted by many as a very negative experience. So I'm glad, obviously, that Beth Miriam, what you found a place to land at Beth Miriam. There is nothing that you haven't done at this temple. Um, you were on my search committee,
I was.
right? 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 That
Yes,
was
I
an
was.
experience and a half. Um, and the problem with me having a really really good memory is I remember everything, and
Uh-oh.
yeah, oh yeah, and I remember every question. But I also remember the the warmth of the community, which is why I'm here. Um, the community has changed in
Yeah.
25 years. Tell me what you see as the biggest change.
Well, for me personally, it was after I got divorced. I had to reinvent myself
Uh-huh.
at
Uh,
Temple.
uh-huh.
Uh, there aren't a lot of single women or single people for that matter. But I had been very active in sisterhood, and then I was kind of in the background for a while.
Mm.
So I reinvented myself by becoming very active again. And it's been wonderful. There's a bunch of wonderful women that I'm friends with because of sisterhood. The way that it's changed, though, the temple is we don't have, and I hate to say this, we don't have a lot of people who do a lot of things.
Right,
It's
which is
a
which is
group,
which is always sure, which is always a problem, and that's very typical in every organization.
right?
What
And
what
I
do
would,
they call it? The 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule? 10% of the people do 90% of the work.
and when I first became involved, there were many people, women who had children, and they still were able to devote the time there. Um, I remember so many men from the men's club serving at all the different meals we used to have. And I guess it's become a little different. The younger people, unfortunately, are not stepping up in our footprint, so to speak. And I would love to see that happen.
It's interesting. Um, that's obviously not the first time I've heard that, or that any other rabbi has heard that, or clergy person has heard that. But something interesting is happening in the during the pandemic, that I think was totally unexpected, and that is that it allowed us to be really creative in doing things.
Mhm.
I mean, really, really creative, in creating things that we never would have given any thought to. But the other thing is that people are connecting with the synagogue that have never connected before. Um, and they're looking for a place that is that is warm, and that's welcoming, and that is a place of stability in the middle of this pandemic. And I think that it has happened because there are people who have um, said, okay, we're going to try something really creative now.
Mhm.
Okay. So, you're so active in the sisterhood. I just updated the sisterhood page. I see that you're having this sisterhood trivia.
It's a game night
So
in March. We used to have them in person in the summer.
it was a game night, right?
Yes, and
And
we
that would
had.
attract all sorts of people.
So now we're going to try this on Zoom and
I
see what happens.
I will bet you it works perfectly.
I think so.
I think it's going to be fun. What kind of vision do you have for the future of the Jewish community in Long Branch or Ocean Township, the temple specifically, and so forth? Kind of an open-ended question.
Yes. Well, first of all, the thing I miss the most about Temple right now is being there.
Yeah,
The last time I was actually there was for Yisker, and the second day of Rosh Hashanah when we had the services outside. And even though I couldn't be near anybody, it was really great to see everybody again.
and
So
wasn't that amazing?
it was amazing. And
Right? I mean, we
um,
had outdoor services, and in the middle of the pandemic, and the place was filled outside.
and that's what I'm looking forward to again,
Yeah,
is to having, when the weather gets nicer, to having outdoor services so I can see people other than seeing them on Zoom.
there's a craving for real, honest to God community.
There really is.
Yeah,
So I don't know what I see for the future. I've always thought, I don't have my own children, but I've always thought that children were our future no matter what. I'm a former teacher, a former vice principal. I chair the religious school board. I think this is like the third time I'm doing that. And as you know, I've been working with your wife, Stella, who is an amazing, amazing creative principal. And it's been fun because I get to know the kids again.
yeah.
I going to the services online. And the most exciting thing now, and I can brag for you, is our teenagers, or they're not even teenagers anymore. Our kids that are in college, and I say our kids because they
Yeah,
are,
they are
our
our kids.
kids that are in college and beyond are now on Zoom with you for classes.
I mean,
And
isn't that
and
amazing?
16 kids.
Yeah,
And
I,
it is amazing
it, it
because
it
they're our
is.
future.
Well, and it is, and this was, and I'll give credit where credit is due. This is Stella's brainchild, and she certainly came up with the name Yella, which of course means to keep moving. Um, but it's our Young Adult Learning Academy, which is a part two of the Teen Academy.
Right,
And what's amazing, Wendy, and this is what I was talking about before, where people are craving a connection with the synagogue, is that the board and you and the religious school have created an environment in which you have said, go invent something, go do anything. And that opens up a can of worms because, when somebody says to me, or in this case to Stella, go do something, we're going to run wild and we're going to create. So we thought of how we're going to put together Yella, which is our Young Adult Leadership Academy. And what was interesting is we sent emails to all the kids, whether the families are members or not. And we have, at this time, 16, although now we got a couple more.
oh
Uh,
good.
oh, yeah. 16 kids. Um, and more are joining. And they're learning with me. We're doing some text and sharing and all that. But what's amazing that you should know, because I haven't really advertised it, is that several of the kids come from families that aren't participating in temple anymore.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? And when we were sharing and we were talking, a couple of them were on the verge of tears and they said, it's just so great to be back.
Oh.
And these are these, and I don't want to call them kids because they're not children by any stretch of the imagination. Um, but they're the ones who who may have left Beth Miriam, but Beth Miriam never left them. And after the first or the second class, um, Stella was just beside herself with joy. And she made an observation that you just made as well, and I'll share it with you. And that was that um, uh, these are the kids, she called them kids, these are the kids who are going to be the next leaders of this temple. And that even though um, right now they have to worry about homework and jobs, and a couple of the students are getting married. um, they have maintained a connection, a Jewish connection, not just with Beth Miriam, but with wherever they are. And they're active at Hillel, and we did that.
Mm-hmm.
You did that. And the education committee did that. And the board did that. And, if you're going to look at, what is my legacy? What am I going to leave from Beth Miriam? You're going to look at those students and you're going to say, yeah, this is really good. And it ought to be a big feather in your cap, Wendy.
Well, it's a big feather in yours
Yeah.
too.
We're all on the same team.
Yes, we are. And
Right.
that's the thing I love about our temple.
Right, right. You know, uh, you're right that synagogues change. They change personalities, they change over time. Um, but if there is respect and integrity and honesty and friendship and love and all of these wonderful things in a synagogue, that's what keeps a synagogue going, and that's what makes a community. And all of the work that you did for the past 27 years um, is a testament to what we have today. And you ought to be really proud of that. And as another thing, I had no idea that you were only on the board for 2 years before, or 1 year before you interviewed me.
Yes. And I requested to be on the Rabbi Search Committee. I was also on the Cantor Search Committee,
Mm-hmm.
but I requested it. And I even remember picking up a cake for your celebration at Cravings, and it was yummy.
It was
And,
yummy.
and yes, and I do also remember one of my earliest memories of you then was that we went to something. I don't know if it was at the JCC,
Yeah, we
but
went to see a play.
okay, the seats were very close together, and I was sitting next to you, and you had to be like this because
Yeah,
we were, and you, of course, always wore a bow tie back
yeah.
then.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember that.
And who was I sitting beside?
Me, and I don't
And
know who the other person was.
Daryl.
Oh, it was Daryl. Yes, of course.
Yeah, and this is instructive for us because even though it was at the JCC, it wasn't a temple event. It was kind of a temple event. It was a Jewish moment, and it was an important Jewish moment that you can remember 27 years later,
Right.
26 years later, and that's what you've created at the temple are these Jewish moments for thousands of people. And that's why what you have done in because of your Jewish experiences, and you brought all those Jewish experiences to the temple and that enthusiasm, and that's why uh, um, uh, your legacy will continue to live.
Which is really wonderful. Supposedly, I say that I'm supposed to be the next president
Mm-hmm.
in a year or
Mm-hmm.
so. I was supposed to be president 20 years ago, but life had other plans for me at that time.
Certainly did.
But I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
and that will be the greatest tribute I could ever give to my dad.
Mm, that's
And
beautiful.
I wish my parents were both alive to see it.
Don't we all?
Yes.
You
And
know,
they would be very, very proud of me.
well, they ought to be. We have a couple of more minutes. I told
Okay.
you could talk for a long time.
I don't mind. Well, I
Yeah.
know I can talk for a long
No,
time.
no. I mean, I told you it would a half an hour could go really quickly. What final thoughts do you want to leave with everybody who's going to see this video, which will now be, of course, put online. It'll be on the YouTube channel. We'll send it by Elijah.
That's why I was a little nervous. Uh, well, I hope that when we can all come back together, I mean, we have the huggiest, kissiest temple that I've ever seen. So we might not be able to do that, but the warmth that I felt the first time I ever stepped foot in Temple Beth Miriam 27 years ago is still the warmth I feel today.
Mm,
And it makes me a little teary because it's just so important to me. We as a temple have gone through some trying times and we've come out ahead, and we
hmm
have new young wonderful families with little children now,
hmm
which is a delight. And it's my pleasure to be here, and it's my pleasure to serve on the board, and I will do it for as long as I possibly can.
Beautiful. That is a perfect place to end. Wendy, I want to thank you. And Yeshikoach.
Thank
You've
you,
you,
Guy, for
you
giving this opportunity to everybody
That's
that
great.
wants to volunteer, because it's a great way to really know what's going on and who we are.
Beautiful. Let me just turn off the recording.
Okay.